This Labor Day at Lowe's, shop member-only doorbuster deals for a limited time. Save $50 on an Ego string trimmer, now $169. Plus, get 50% off select Holland pavers. Not a rewards member? Sign up for free today. But hurry, Labor Day doorbuster deals won't last long. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 9/1 while supplies last. Program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Yeah. You gotta work. You gotta work, grind, shine, it's mine. Gotta show everybody it's my time. Getting here, you gotta work, grind, shine. Never mind who talking down, cause they lying. Don't talk, you gotta work.
Welcome to Let's Talk with Carl Lee and frequent guest hosts Hollis Lewis and Lisa Otey, where sports, culture, and community intersect. Join the crew as they dive into engaging conversations with guests from all walks of the sports life. Let's Talk is proudly presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. FrankWalkerLaw.com. And by the all-new historic Coyer Diner in downtown Charleston. Online at CoyerDiner.com. Let the conversation begin on Let's Talk.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carl Lee with Let's Talk, and I have my two co-hosts in the building tonight with me, Hollis Lewis.
Hello, hello.
And Lisa Otey.
Hello.
And we have a very special guest, and we're going to talk. We're going to talk about some NIL stuff, which is seemingly keeps returning in different forms and fashion, and so we can't afford but not to address it. So, Hollis, let us introduce our host.
To help us navigate this conversation, we have attorney Paul Saluja, and he's working in the sports management, sports agency space. Am I correct in that?
That is correct. We do help student athletes.
Yes. So recently, the WVSSAC, which is the West Virginia Secondary Athletic Conference Association, they passed a policy in which middle school and high school students would now be eligible to cash in on NIL. So if you could just walk us through kind of what the policies entails and you know, how should we be thinking about navigating this in the near future?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
I appreciate all of you. Know each of you, and it's wonderful to be here. But to answer your question, the reality is West Virginia is finally joining the NIL bandwagon. Mm-hmm. We're the 44th state that has actually implemented. And the policy is basically fairly straightforward. What they've changed is that a student athlete can receive compensation for their name, image, and likeness. There are some restrictions on that. For example, they cannot enter the transfer portal and be enticed by NIL money. There are certain restrictions, such as they can't advertise for alcohol, tobacco, and other things. They're also not permitted to use the school logo or anything like that. But otherwise, as long as they abide by those, they should be able to be compensated for their brand, their name, image, and likeness.
And prior, in different from the NCAA policy, or at least the former policy, they actually have to do something in a promotional capacity. So they cannot just like receive quote-unquote payments directly from school alumni booster collective, correct?
That is correct. So they have to, you know, it could be anything from an autograph session. It could be anything from promoting a little drill session that they come out. So there's a lot of things that can be done. But, yes, they do have to do something for it. They have to, quote-unquote, earn it.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you say earn it, does that – can I earn that also by participation? By my
no.
So it's
no. It's not pay for play.
Okay,
that's separate.
So let me ask this then: if I'm the top player on a team, isn't it most likely that I'm going to be that guy or girl that's going to be most likely to get the deal?
I'm not so sure. If you think about it, it goes back to there's no I in team.
I understand that, yeah.
But realistically, you may have a stellar athlete, but ultimately, they're being compensated for not just their athletic prowess,
right,
but they're being compensated for their brand, that name, image, and likeness. And I say that because they have to develop that brand. They have to develop a notoriety. They have to develop a following. And I think that's where you're going to see certain student athletes stand out and others fall behind. So even though you may be the stellar athlete, you may have someone else who is a supporting athlete, but he or she may be able to develop a greater brand by virtue of how they market themselves.
Yeah. I would argue that that's going to be the real winners in this is the kids who and the parents who understand how to market. Just because you're the star athlete, that's not any guarantee that you're going to get any money from this. There was a student that he just graduated from South Charleston High School. His name was, this is what they call him. This is his moniker online. His name is a White Boy M, and he has millions of social media followers. So if he was somebody who was, playing in some sort of sport at the high school, he would cash in and without necessarily having to be the star. So I don't think it's necessarily like you're the best player, so you're going to get the money.
And I know who you're talking about, and I could justifiably say he was just good enough, but he was so known, and everybody recognized him. He would be the guy that I would go to talk to, just because I know he's going to just through the school. Just him being in the school, he's going to be a person that's going to bring me attention.
Yeah. And when you think about it, you've actually hit the nail on the head. All these businesses that want to, pay a student athlete to promote their business using their brand, they want to have a return on their investment. Mm-hmm. And that's going to involve who can get the word out the best. As you indicated, Hollis, you may be the best athlete, but what if you're just a supporting athlete and you've got 1 million followers? I'm not so sure I wouldn't spend my money on that as opposed to, just the stud quarterback, so to speak.
Yeah. So Paul, first of all, thank you so much for helping us navigate these new waters that West Virginia's, entering with NIL. But I read through the policy today, some of the different pieces of it, and one part kind of you mentioned this already, but you mentioned that student athletes may not wear the apparel or display the logo or identifying mark of an NIL partner during any team activity. So we're not just talking about like game day, So let's say that they have this deal with, some company and they wear a shirt to practice or meet the team, or there's a booster activity. Will there be like ramifications for those activities as well, not just game day?
The way I read it, and please understand, this is all brand new. So we need guidance.
Right.
We need guidance from the WVSSAC. The reality is I'm not sure yet. I do think the way it's written, it would encompass those other activities. Even if you had practices, I think that they're not allowed to bring in who they're advertising for.
I read it the other way. I thought you couldn't advertise, when you're doing these endorsements and brand deals, you couldn't have the school's logo.
That's how.
Did I read it? I thought I read it that way.
That is one part.
That's one part. Correct. Okay, maybe I missed that.
Okay, so are we saying that we can't necessarily do the school, nor can we do?
Not during a school activity.
I don't think it can be crossed over. So they have to be separate.
This is the way I understood it, right?
Correct.
Like during any type of school activity, you cannot promote your NIL partner.
So my NIL partner is going to be the person who's going to get me a signing. So if I get a signing, I can't necessarily talk about or wear anything from the school.
That is correct.
If I'm at the school and I'm performing, playing, or anything, I can't wear the NIL donation or payment. I can't show that company.
That is correct.
Okay. So that's kind of the dividing piece
both ways.
of it. Yeah.
It goes both ways.
It goes both ways. All right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Now, in reading through the policy, I had two major issues with the policy. Like I said earlier, I think the policy's is thoughtful in that it's a true NIL. It's not a pay for play, as we talked about earlier. And we'll address them one at a time. The first one is like, I don't understand the thought behind allowing middle schoolers to do this. It seems like way too early to start getting involved in this sort of thing.
Good point.
I think market forces will probably decide whether or not middle schoolers will get anything. I'm not sure they will.
Yeah.
Remember, the businesses or whoever's spending the money does want some return on their investment. They're not just throwing their money away.
That's a fact. And I guess my other issue with it is that the coaches, they don't have any sort of say so. They're sort of X'd out of this whole process. And again, I think that's good from the perspective that now you're not going to have coaches, playing quote unquote middleman in between, a brand and, maybe a player or something to that effect. But, can coaches capitalize on this too? Shouldn't it be some sort of say and, shouldn't something come through the coach as far as?
Well, the way it's written, coaches and school administrators and everyone are not permitted to be involved in that. And I think they were just trying to ensure that they separated out the pay for play and truly go with the brand and the student athlete's name, image, and likeness is what it appears.
And okay, so with that, I would think, and Hollis, I'm curious about what you think about this. If I'm a coach, and let's say I have maybe 3 players that I think could fit this model, I would think that it would be to your advantage to be able to talk to me and have me. Now, this is not with my kid being part of that mixture, but just me as the coach and my players, and you come and you want to pay this guy, and I'm thinking, well, but Hollis is probably the guy that's going to be the more beneficial, the more bang for your buck. I would think that would be something that would be critical to have that conversation. It's almost like scouting without talking to the coach.
Yeah, I think the problem with that, though, is that if you get coaches in the mix to that degree, then you're going to have some hands in the cookie jar. And coaches would now have the power to sort of pull and shape NIL deals, and that could get dicey. So I understand the WVSSAC's policy in that. It just seems like to totally X coaches out far as just like, because I guess as a coach I would want to know at least, hey, I would want to know kind of what you're involved in to a certain degree, because I need to figure out practice schedules. I need to figure out your timing. And you also going to have situations in which some kids, they don't really have any other advisors. They don't have, to your point, they don't have anybody else.
And to confirm that, we have a mom who has her son in youth football today. She knows nothing. Like how the helmet works, how the shoulder pads work. What if that moves up and there's an opportunity for that kid, not saying she couldn't learn the game, but now all of a sudden you have a parent who really doesn't even know what the game is. And this is really not a legal question, more so than just, hey, this is one of those kind of situations that you could come up with, which could end up maybe being a disaster.
Have to find a good friend, right?
That's right.
I'm a good thinking, friend or family member that knows the game.
Or agent.
Or an agent.
Or an agent. But the reality is, I think lots of times, if you think about it, most student athletes and their parents rely on their circle of friends. And I think that's where that's going to be more incumbent than ever. It's going to be very important.
So you're saying that because I know Hollis I'm more likely to go to Hollis and ask him, what do you think about this situation? And he can give me the advice, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you go to Lisa, you can go to Hollis. I mean, both are very knowledgeable about sports, and they can provide good guidance that's quote-unquote unofficial guidance that has nothing that would jeopardize your ability to get the NIL money.
Right. And I would think that also creates the need for having an attorney be in and around that situation. That would, to me, I would make that makes the case that that's something that would be extremely important if you really don't know, and you may not want to trust just calling me and saying, hey, what do you think? I may think something, but, I'm not going to think it through maybe more like you may look at it.
Yeah, I would look at it differently. And obviously, all these student athletes we're talking about, they're all minors.
Right.
So realistically, not only do you have a minor, you've also
Right.
got to worry about the contractual obligations, and you have to have a parent or a legal guardian sign off on it for it to be valid.
Right.
So you
We've
have
talked
other
about that
implications.
before.
So it's not just, with the high school and the middle school level, there are other issues that aren't really issues at the collegiate level.
So I'm going to go a different direction, Paul, with this policy. So I know that it's fluid and it's early, and it's going to take years to really perfect what they want to get out of this policy, of course. But one part of it that I read, a student if they have some type of infraction against what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do, and they lose their amateur status, they have to wait. Wait a complete year, one complete high school season before they can reapply for reinstatement. That's what I read. I don't know.
I will just say that. I think you
what
got
I'm
to look
saying
at the
is it's
infraction. I think that that could be subject to litigation,
Okay.
and I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
The lawyerly answer right there.
And Hollis even laughed at that.
Yeah, but I see what you're saying, because the interpretation of this is so, we're not even sure. I mean, you're not even sure.
We're not sure yet. It's too early.
We're asking questions and we're like, well, we don't know because it hasn't happened yet. So, that's a pretty stiff penalty for a student athlete that's only in high school hoping to make it to the collegiate level, and they mess up and they break a rule and somebody's, kind of out to get them or whatever and report them to the WVSSAC, then they end up sitting out a year because they wore a T-shirt to the wrong place.
And what if they were a senior?
Exactly. So to
And that-
me,
yeah,
that's where it becomes
severe
dicey.
penalty.
Yes.
That's a bit draconian.
Yeah,
So-
I'm with you on that one. Now, as far as expectations, like I said, we talked about earlier, as far as getting some NIL deals. What would be your advice to parents and student athletes to maximize their opportunities while they're still in high school and middle school?
To me, I think it's simple. Businesses want a return on their investment, and businesses want to associate with good students, good athletes, and those that are not in trouble. And I say that, and Coach, you can probably attest to it. I'm sure in some of the contracts you had, there were morality clauses. And if you violated one of the morality clauses, you lost your contracts, correct?
Yeah.
In this case, I think you're going to see more and more of that. They're going to have morality clauses. So things that we did as a kid, and I'll tell you, I was not perfect as a child. And I got into as much trouble. Of course, you had the morality clause, Coach.
Oh, my
You
God.
knew you would get into it.
We know that's a...
But the reality is, I think you're going to see these student athletes. I think it's going to help the parents, and it's going to help the student athlete recognize that, look, maybe I should think before I do this. And I think you may have some tangential benefits out of this NIL, because some of those student athletes are going to think twice before they do something.
And I think too, you kind of emphasize the parent also, because I think sometimes that parent who has that talented kid who may be in line for these opportunities could all of a sudden, because they think that they're getting ready to get it, there's things that they say, things that they do that they probably shouldn't. They could end up becoming the reason why a kid could lose out on an NIL deal, just simply because of how they handle themselves, because they think, oh, I've got this kid, somebody's already talking to him, we've got an attorney, we've got this great deal, and you're saying all these things that you might not be allowed to say. So I would think, so if I'm a parent, where do I go to get that information of what I can and can't do? Is that something that they can get? Is it something they're supposed to know, or they got to figure it out? How would they
Well, I would hope that the WVSSAC would open up a kind of like a guidance email, so that you can send them an email or give them a call so that you can get clarification. I would hope that would be part of the process as all this unravels.
Right.
If not, they can come seek professional advice. Obviously, that ultimately costs money.
Right.
But the reality is there should be a number of ways. And first and foremost, I hope the SSAC opens up a guidance line, for lack of a better
some type of website or something that you could go and
where everybody can see it.
Right.
And I know we talked about earlier West Virginia being the 44th state to implement high school and middle school NIL policies. And could you just talk about the necessity of really having to do this now? Because I think we were at a breaking point where we could potentially lose athletes to other states if we didn't.
Well, so earlier this year, I had a student athlete that asked me to see what could be done for NIL at the legislature. We went, and unfortunately we were not successful at that. But at least the momentum carried, and it ultimately changed. And I raise that issue because the West Virginia delegates and the West Virginia senators that were on the border counties were the ones that were most appreciative of the efforts and were very much in support. And if you think about it, why? Because if you have a stellar athlete at in Huntington, they could have gone to Kentucky, which at the time didn't have it, now does. Ohio, which already had it. So West Virginia would have lost a stellar athlete. West Virginia would have lost the positive press on a national basis. And you know what? As much as our government has told us that we don't have monies and that we're in the red, it would help with the tax base, because guess what? When you make money, you got to pay taxes
on it.
Yeah, and I think for me that's sort of a major point, because we've seen a lot of athletes in the Huntington, Cabell County area sort of jump those borders. So it's definitely important that, and again, I know everybody doesn't like it, but I think it was necessary, and I just applaud the WVSSAC for getting it done now and not being 50th.
Good point.
The only thing was we're 44th. We could have been a little bit earlier.
44th is better than being 50.
Here's what I kind of wonder about, though. You've got all of these online platforms, and now you've got all these folks that have become influencers who have got tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, even millions of followers. And so they might be the stud of a football team or on a basketball team or whatever. They might be that star player, but they've also already got a following that really has nothing to do with that. They just happen to excel in a lot of different things. So does that maybe create a little bit of a gray area where you've got companies that have already been doing brand deals with these people for their social media following, and it just so happens that they're also the star player at such a certain school or what have you? Is that what maybe brought us to why we need this in the first place, is rather than just trying to skirt around it and say, oh, no, we've got a brand deal with that kid because they've got a huge social media following. It has nothing to do with them being a star athlete, and just attack this head on and say, you know what? This kid is worth it. We're just going to pay them what they deserve.
I think it needed to be. I think it needed to be attacked head on. But you made a good point. I think that would have been in the gray area. When you have a student athlete who's got a tremendous following, whether they're a stellar athlete or not, those million followers, that's worth a substantial amount of money to social media. And as a result, businesses are willing to pay that. You see all these social media influencers on TikTok and on Facebook and Instagram, and the minute they get these followers, they put something out, everybody jumps on it.
Yeah.
So.
I'm trying to figure out, just in this piece of the conversation, I'm thinking, gosh, I can think of a whole lot of guys in the NFL, guys that I play college ball. If they were getting paid for the influence that they had, the following of the audience, I mean, are we heading that direction?
You look at the Gronk. I mean, you think about it, his social media following, right?
Yeah,
the Gronk,
it's true. It's true.
I mean,
the baby Gronk kid.
That's right.
Yeah.
But look at it. The reality is he developed an excellent branding of himself, and leveraged it.
Well, you have to wonder, too, are the Kelsey brothers making more money now with their New Heights podcast than they are playing on the NFL field? I mean, probably.
And I think that's one of the issues as well, because when you talk a guy like Paul George, for example, one of his criticisms is that he'll go out, play for the 76ers, lay an egg, and the next day he's on his podcast. and that actually, management and the coaches made him actually stop.
Whatever works, right?
Like, stop doing the podcast until you, get it together. So one of the issues, again, I've talked about earlier, is that I think now we're in a situation in which, and I think this is probably going to be more so on the parents, they're sort of putting more emphasis on developing the brand than developing the athleticism on the field and court.
That's a good point.
So, I mean, there has to be a balance there.
And Hollis, to your point, I'm involved with youth sports, and I've had a peek at the middle school teams, and I've had a peek at the high school as far as coaching. It's way easier, or at least it seems way easier to get a following.
Oh, for
than
sure.
it is to become a great player.
I don't know, man.
You know what I'm saying? But to your point, what can I just go out there and chase a following, chase this image that I can create, and I can be the third string quarterback, and I can make money?
The answer is yes.
The answer is absolutely. And that actually might be hilarious. Yeah. If you are a third string quarterback out there, get to it. Get to work.
I mean, because if you're looking at it and you can say, okay, well, Hollis is better than me, Varian's better than me.
This is my gig. This is what I'm going to do.
This is my gig. They're out there chasing each other, trying to be a starter. You know what? I'll just chase social media, and I'll be funny, and I'll make money.
Yeah.
All right, cats and kittens, have you heard? The Warrior Diner is back. Step into the classic vibe of one of Charleston's most historic restaurants. Don't miss the daily Blue Plate specials. Breakfast served all day, every day, and free parking. With an outdoor patio covered for the summer, an elegant basement bar, and customizable event space, 1022 Warrior Street offers an experience unlike any other. Open 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit WarriorDiner.com for all the need to know and relive the good times at the Warrior Diner.
Let's face it, bad things happen to good people. Seriously injured in a car accident, trucking accident, or even wrongfully arrested. Life happens, and when it happens to you, you will need sound legal advice and aggressive representation. That's when you call attorney Frank Walker at 304-413-0179. That's 304-413-0179. Lock it in your phone, text it to a friend. 304-413-0179. Or visit online at attorneyfrankwalker.com.
Let's Talk with Carl Lee is presented by attorney Frank Walker and the all-new historic Warrior Diner. Come in on episodes, ask the crew questions, or suggest topics on our Facebook page. Search for Let's Talk with Carl Lee, and remember to like the page to become part of the conversation. Subscribe by searching Let's Talk with Carl Lee on your favorite podcast service, and tune in Thursday evenings at 7 or Sunday nights at 8 for Let's Talk with Carl Lee. This is Let's Talk with Carl Lee. Now back to the conversation.
Since we're talking about NIL, and one of our other favorite subjects on this podcast, Paul, is the transfer portal, of course, in the state. That's our other one. So I read an article, and Wayne Ryan, who's the executive director of the WVSSAC, had made a comment, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on this. But he mentioned that if students couldn't transfer for athletic reasons as freely as they can now, this would not be as big of an issue, the NIL. So he's blaming a lenient transfer rule rather than the other parts that we're discussing. Can you kind of what do you think he means by that statement? Can you expand on that?
I'm really not sure what his thought process is. I mean, the transfer portal it's a separate issue. It's a separate issue, and also you're only allowed one free transfer.
Right.
Is what they've put into their rules and regs. Even though the legislature, by the way, had it said different. They said at least one. The wording in the statute's different than what WVSSAC is embodied. So,
and I think. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, and I was saying to Lisa's point, there is a mentioned in the policy that you cannot transfer strictly for NIL within the policy, right?
Right. But I want to, maybe go back and, I know Lisa comes from an awesome background. She was a former teacher. Mm-hmm. And, we've said, and if you've noticed, I've said a number of times, it's a student athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So NIL, they're looking at NIL for amateur status. We have to look at it also from a different perspective. What if you have a good chess player for,
good point.
And or what if you have someone that's on a robotics team? And there's an attorney in town, it's a friend of mine. His son has competed nationally in these robotic competitions with his team. What about them? What if all of a sudden you got Elon Musk who decides, you know what, I like that team. Mm-hmm. And I need to sponsor. What is that?
Didn't think about that.
Yeah. Also, the spelling bee champ. I would imagine,
Correct.
as far as like in middle schools, particularly, there's probably no bigger star athletically otherwise than like the.
So it's
that's
really
on
more
ESPN.
extracurricular than it is athletic. I mean, it can be athletic, but it can also be extracurricular, right? I mean,
Correct.
that's
Well, WVSSAC is West Virginia Secondary Schools Activities Commission.
activities.
Mm-hmm. So it embodies more.
But
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, what's crazy about that? Nobody thinks that.
Yeah.
When you hear that, you automatically go to a sport.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think there's nothing about that makes me think academics.
But now that you say that, I would think that maybe those kids might even have a bigger opportunity.
I think so, too.
sure.
You know what I mean? Like I said, because you look at like the spelling bee champ, that's a nationally televised event. And if you're the champ of the spelling bee for 7th grade, think about the sponsorship and promotional opportunities that may be there for commercials nationally, local, and otherwise.
Well, and even activities like music or the arts, for example, marching band, show choir,
all of it.
all of that is also dictated by the rules of the WVSSAC.
That is correct.
And what's interesting about that is that's something that we don't necessarily look at. At least I'm going to make the case, maybe I'm stereotyping me and you, Hollis, but that we don't consider part of the SSAC.
I think most people don't. I think most people are looking at athletics.
And I would think...
And team sports,
and
not individual.
Yeah, for sure. Everything's, quote, a team sport.
Yeah.
But when you start mentioning these other things, I actually like that even better than I do with the sport.
But that brings up an interesting point, too, because the fact of the matter is, like, the way, again, I like how the policy was written, but it's also written in a manner that you really, because you can't mention your accolades, whether it be in an activity or on, the field or court, it almost creates a situation in which you really can't use how good you are in these things. It really is like you have to be a brand outside of the sport even. Because I can't mention that I'm the quarterback for South Charleston High. I can't mention that I'm the captain of the chess team for this particular school. So the way it's written, now that I'm thinking about it, it almost makes it even a little bit harder to capture that NIL deal strictly based off how good I am at this particular activity in sport.
And you raise a good point because it is your brand.
Yeah.
Name, image, and likeness is your brand. If you look back and going back to sports, many of you remember EA Sports. They had that college football, and they had that game. They discontinued it, I believe, in around 2011, 2012.
Yeah, it's back now.
It is back now. And why? Because now they're paying the student athletes on it. Because in the past, they weren't. And it was their brand. Remember, the student athlete's name wasn't on
I remember that.
It had their number, and it had their statistics. But that's still their brand. And those student athletes should be compensated for it. And they have to develop that brand, I guess, in parallel to their athletic achievement.
And I guess that's my point. It seems like it's going to be difficult. Like I said, if you're just a star, like if you don't necessarily have big social media following, all that other thing, it seems like it's going to be difficult to really cash in on the NIL without letting the audience and the people know, hey, I'm the star quarterback of here. I'm the captain of the basketball team. I play tennis here. You see what I'm saying?
I do. But
because EA Sports example that you use, it's that quarterback, that left tackle, that defensive back in association with that school brand. So they'll become one.
But I went to GW, and graduated a couple years ago. But
Me
when
too.
we when we graduated, this will date me. My junior year, we won the AAA football championship, and I will tell you, everybody in town knew. A good friend of mine who was a star quarterback, who was a junior, who's in my class, and everybody knew the star running back and the wide receiver. Everybody knew their name.
He didn't have to advertise his
school. You didn't have to.
Or
you
his
didn't have to say
position.
anything, but they recognized him because they were and back then everybody read the newspaper.
Yeah.
So, Saturday morning, everybody's reading all the articles that the Gazette's got put out, and they're talking about the statistics, and they got their names in there. So everybody statewide, because of the coverage, was automatically getting their brand. Their brand was being developed now.
Okay, so I guess I'm saying this. Like, if we're talking about developing that brand, to your point, if I have these million or so followers online, part of probably me getting that, in addition to if I have any sort of special talents, I'm funny, whatever, if I'm posting my highlights, right? So if I'm posting my highlights from whatever sport or activity that I'm involved with, part of that may be enticing to a brand to want to work with me based on that. But yet I can't say that. I can say, hey, I'm a quarterback. I can't say that I'm the quarterback here. And to your point earlier, now when you're talking online, it's national. So they may not know you in association, as far as what particularly you're doing. You see what I'm saying?
I do. And I think, for example, if a student athlete wants to post on their own social media highlights from the game, if they get it, they're allowed to have it, then by all means they should be able to post it. I don't think that affects the NIL.
Okay.
And the reason is because nobody's paying for that. That's on their own social media. But the minute they get paid for a promotion, that's where I think the restriction comes into place. Remember, student athletes are posting that all the time so that they can get college scholarships.
Yeah.
They're trying to develop their athletic prowess and advertise that. But that's not to a specific person that's paying for it.
Well, and this is probably why it's so important for the players that are good are going to be the ones that are going to get the name recognition from the folks at West Virginia Metro News, HD Media, House
They're
Media.
already getting it.
They're
right?
getting the recognition, so their name's getting put out there just because the media is doing what it naturally does and picks it up, and their name is showing up every week because, they're doing whatever on the field or what have you there, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully winning the national aeronautical something. And, Elon Musk is picking it up.
Yeah, there you go.
And so I have in my mind, I was thinking as Hollis was talking, and I was thinking about Robert Alexander, who, we all know has passed away. And he was kind of the guy who got me into the workouts and all that kind of stuff and really had a huge impact on my career. His name and likeness and everything at that time was it wasn't just local. It was literally nationally. Him and, again, I'll go to Kurt Warner, who you're talking about two guys who were the best back in the nation. So now none of their football stats really matter, but what attention they are getting.
The football stats matter the most because that's what the attention is based off of. So you can have the stats. Yeah.
But maybe if you're not getting so let's just say Robert and Kurt. I think Robert got more attention than Kurt, regardless of who was the best, because he went to West Virginia and all of that kind of conversation. Kurt got the negativity for going to Penn State. But to that point, their talent, while it got them a scholarship, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're popular to the people or they're publicly positive, publicly negative. Does that make sense? Like
they didn't have social media back then.
I know, but
that
I'm
would
saying
have been a whole completely different animal.
But that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to put that in today. So let's say Roberts had some negativity about him. Kurt had positive for himself. Regardless of who you thought was the best, Kurt is likely going to be the get the most attention?
I guess what I'm saying is this. Like, for example, if I have an amazing game, and in that game, I have an amazing play. I have one of them plays that's on the top 10 of the Friday Night Lights, right? I have an absolute play, right? I cannot use that play, even though if I post it on my social media, that play may get millions of hits on mine. It can get millions of hits on WCHS, Metro News. It can get hits all over the platform. It can go viral. I can't use that play in order to capitalize on an NIL deal. Like, so I think that the way it's written, and it's so far separate that I think is going to make it hard for somebody who does not have the personality to brand themselves in a way that's going to capture millions of people online. You see what I'm saying?
Well, when you have,
I think the attorney is looking at you.
What I'm thinking is, I'm thinking, you know what?
Yeah,
you need to call my office tomorrow.
Yeah.
We need to find money for you from Friday Night Lights. That's what we need to do.
So that's the other part of it. So now, if these other news outlets post this amazing highlights and they're monetizing their sites off of, and I could direct it, hey, this got 10 million views and you made X amount of money, I need a cut of that now. But the way the policy's written, I can't get a cut of that. So it's like I can't use my athletic prowess to get money. It's only about if I'm goofy online. Does that make sense?
Well, we talked about this when we were waiting to come on, Paul and Carl, and Hollis was on his way. But anyway, we were talking about, like, now that we have this in place and they're able to be paid for their brand, like, let's say, you know, what he was saying, HD Media or, RSN Sports wants to interview this star athlete. It is the athlete can appropriately ask for compensation, correct? I mean, they can say for a fee, I can be. They don't have to, but they can, right?
Well, right now, that's an area that's a gray area.
Okay.
Theoretically, they can, but if you recall, like, Coach will be able to attest to this. You know what? In part of those contracts, they were required to speak to the media.
Yeah.
And WVSSAC can say, you know what? To be able to participate, you need to speak with the media.
But they haven't done that yet.
They haven't done that yet.
So that could be something that could happen, right?
Yeah.
Theoretically.
Yeah. I like I said, I like the policy because it is a true NIL because you're not actually getting just money handed to you. But I think the policy is a little flawed in that I should be able to use my highlights. I should be able to use my status as, you know, chess player, quarterback, robotics club, whatever, in order to get those NIL deals as well. So I think that's just.
I agree with that. I agree with that because at the end of the day, how I'm thinking, I want as an athlete. I'm thinking how I need to market myself. I'm thinking I'm marketing myself as an athlete.
Because it prevents you from doing goofy stuff online.
Oh, but there's no preventing that.
No, I'm just saying if you're not that type, that's going to because
I'm holding that against you.
There's some kids who are, you know, serious and they're not with the goofy stuff online. They're strictly online to say, hey, this is the grades I got. I'm this sort of athlete. I'm this sort of family kid. So now those kids may not be able to get those same opportunities and looks.
There's one glaring example
am I
of this.
overthinking it is?
Think of Michael Jordan, for example, the Nike Air Jordan brand. He never, ever wore anything that actually was NBA branded Chicago Bulls. In all of those commercials, it was just Jordan and the Nike Air Jordan stuff. And I think that's kind of sort of what you're trying. No?
We don't bring his airness to these low-level conversations. His airness is on a whole different level, sir.
But I mean, even on that professional level,
I know what you mean. I'm messing with you.
Even on that high level, I mean, you're still separating that out between the player versus the league.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask the turn. From the comments you heard me, do you think there's going to be, as we flesh this out in years to come, do you think there's going to be room for those sort of adjustments and to rethinking it?
I think this is a great starting point. Mm-hmm. I think the SSAC should be applauded for going ahead and taking the step. Mm-hmm. I do think it's going to take a number of years to finally flush out and figure out, after the dust settles, what the final rules are going to look like. I think this is a starting point. This is not the end. But if I could circle back, everybody was talking about the difference between the athletic and then the branding. I think it's separate, but I also think it goes hand in hand. And let me give you a good example. Everybody at this table, and I bet everybody that would listen to this show, and most people nationally, prior to social media, there was a guy that played football at WVU. His name was Major Harris.
Mm-hmm.
He developed a brand nationally without ever once using social media. He developed it with his superior athletic abilities and his ability to try to win the game. And that just goes to show you can brand yourself using social media, but you also have the ability to just brand yourself, quote unquote, on the field.
But who can we say, and we're talking local, not anybody from anywhere else, who can we say in the past 10 years, from high school to college, within the state of West Virginia, has had that sort of Randy Moss, Rob Alexander, Major Harris impact? Who can we say? Who can we name?
Kevin Pittsnoggle.
10 years.
Okay, so he's 12.
10 years. 10 years.
Who you turning the room? Why do you like hold me to it?
Because I'm talking about in the middle of the social media area. Who can we say that had that national level impact? Because we could probably name some guys who had it just off their social media stuff, but I'm talking pure ball that had a national impact.
Hollis Lewis.
No, not me.
I don't think in the last 10 years, I don't think
college, high school, who?
Well, if I could interject, I mean, it may not be a name that everybody here would recognize, but there was a Marshall goalie on the national championship team, Paola, and he ended up getting some great contracts.
Okay, that's one.
So that's a perfect example of what you were saying. People typically go to football and basketball. They don't go to those those other sports. Okay. Yeah.
And to my flaw, I was going to add you to it, but I'll just keep it on my own. To my flaw, like those types of sports, like I wouldn't necessarily know that name.
Yeah, most of them wouldn't.
Because that wouldn't be somewhere where I would think to look. And when you start to open that window, I mean, there could be a golfer, there could be a volleyball player. I mean, there could be a ton out there that have that quote star power along with the game that could easily fall into this window.
And I guess what I'm saying is, like, I think my point is just that I think it's more difficult to have that same star power now than it is in yesteryear. And I think it's even more difficult when we're saying you can't basically mention your athleticism.
Well, I don't know. I actually think it's easier because I think
it's not easier.
I think it is because
you can't name one. You can't name one.
But I'm flawed in it.
No,
I'm flawed in it. I'm not really looking.
Everybody knew Randy Moss. Everybody knew Major Harris, whether you was a fan or not. You can't name one because it's more crowded.
Depend on their success, too, in the sport and their team's success. Because Major Harris, he took the team to the national championship that year, correct? So that one year. But yeah, I think I'm like Carl. I'm kind of Team Carl here. I would think it would be easier.
It's not, because you can't name one. We can name Lexus Hornbuckle, Renee Montgomery. That's outside of the 10-year window. We can name a bunch of people, but we can't within the last 10 years because it's so crowded. You can't really. There's not a one that just jumps off the page that nationally everybody knows.
Everybody's highlights are on YouTube now.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
Social media has equalized it. I'm with Hollis here. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say, okay, to your point about everybody being on YouTube or somewhere, we can sit in the room and we may not know, but there may be some folks out there that know people who.
I ain't talking about them. I'm talking about in this room.
Well, this is the old people ward.
No. Y'all got a million excuses.
We're in the retirement home here.
No.
Well, I just have one more thing, and I just want Paul's opinion. We've talked all about these different aspects of this NIL policy, and so when I read through it, there was one piece that said compensation for giving private lessons is permissible if approved by the WVSSAC. Now, do you feel like that's, and this is personal opinion, this isn't your law degree speaking, don't you think that's kind of outside the lines of NIL when you think about giving private lessons? And who would be the one, who would decide? Would they have a special committee? Like you say, I'm going to give this kid lessons in football. Well, I got to go in front of the committee and make sure it's okay. I mean, what's your opinion of that piece?
My personal opinion?
Your personal, not law, not lawyer Paul.
Okay, so my personal opinion is, first of all, the teacher's the only one that came in with notes and keeps asking me these pop questions. So fundamentally, I got an issue right there because Teach came prepared. It's like she should have given me my reading assignment before I arrived.
Well, no, this is a personal thing. This isn't anything like. This is actually part of it. I mean, I read the policy, and this was a piece of it, and I'm like, this is kind of out of the lines. I mean, do we really need that? I mean, I think I understand what they're trying to do, but that kind of goes above and beyond.
I think it goes above and beyond.
Yes.
I don't think it's a part of NIL. And by the way, I also fundamentally, this is me speaking, they need not review the contracts. I have no problem if they want to review the contracts as long as they post every person WVSSAC's salary.
Ooh.
Yeah, I like that.
I want to know what every one of them makes. But if they want to know what my client makes, I got no problem. Because it's for his brand, not for athletics. It's not for his activities. So I got no problem. But then let's just post it on their website. Every salary needs to be posted.
I like that.
I would like. This is you're right in my alley. Okay. I would like to have let's talk about this publicly. Let's sit down and have this discussion of why you came to this. I don't care who voted for it and who didn't, but tell me the conversation in which you had to make you think this is good or this is bad. That's my problem, is I'm not sure that they're always right on some of the policies that they create. As an athlete, that has played the game, I don't know who's really all on that board. I don't know if you've got a ton of athletes, you got one, you got none. I have no idea who's there. So it's hard for me to say when you make a judgment on something that you made the right one or the wrong one. Because I don't know, I don't know where your background is. I don't know where you got, this takes some really thought-provoking kind of talk to get to it. You as an attorney, you're looking at this in a way. Did they use your thought process to get to where they are? I don't think so. I think it's I don't either. I think it's no, I just don't agree with that. I just don't like it.
Well, if you recall, before we came on the air, I talked about one thing that I proposed they should do that they didn't do, which is I think they should have had financial training, planning for the student athletes prior to being eligible for a contract.
Which would be good.
Now, who can say there's anything wrong with that? I mean, that's first of all, education as a whole. I got teacher next to me. It's always promoted. There's nothing wrong with learning more. But to educate these student athletes, let's say you do have, even if it's not a super stud, let's say you have a student athlete that gets $25,000. Okay, what's he or she going to do with it? Well, first thing, he's got to pay taxes. Or she's got to pay taxes. Well, what do you do with the balance? Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. Well, they have no concept. And I think that's where that training should have been implemented as a part of this policy. That way they have to take some class. And by the way, it's not, I would like to say it's a novel approach and Paul Saluja came up with this idea. It's not that. Other states have already done that.
Yeah.
And so I'd read, and I thought it would be great for them to embody it here as well.
Nice.
All right. Well,
what can they find you at, Paul? If they have more questions, they want to get a consultation.
Absolutely. They can call my office anytime, 304-755-1101.
Give it to them again, just in case.
304-755-1101.
All right. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're looking for somebody, there's the number. Hollis, I don't know. I think we were somewhat close today.
Yeah.
We were somewhat close today.
Yeah, I think
we were.
Like I said, and again, just to clarify, I think this is a great idea. I'm glad West Virginia took the steps, but I think there are some things going to have to be cleaned up in the future, because we want to make sure, in my mind, that NIL is about your performance on the field and not just you trying to be goofy or do something dangerous online to get attention.
Right. That is scary, because somebody's going to. If it's not my performance on the field, it's who I am off the field.
Yeah.
That's a risky thing.
I think it's a great policy. I agree with Hollis, and I think it's going to have to be tweaked. There's going to be growing pains with this. You're going to have issues come up that people are going to question parts of it and test it even. But in the long run, we had to do it. It's just pure and simple. It had to be done.
Well, I mean, I was actually hoping that we didn't get here.
But we had no choice.
But there was really no choice.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, would you say we're 44th? 44th. So
better than dead last.
And I think all the states around us too. So Kentucky, Ohio, and I think Virginia and Maryland.
Kentucky was the last one around, but Ohio, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, all of them were doing it.
So we had no choice.
You had no choice. You were losing. Chance to lose kids there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you being with us today, and we will be back again next week.
Let's Talk with Carl Lee is presented by attorney Frank Walker and the all-new historic Quarrier Diner. Comment on episodes, ask the crew questions, or suggest topic on our Facebook page. Search for Let's Talk with Carl Lee, and remember to like the page to become part of the conversation. Subscribe by searching Let's Talk with Carl Lee on your favorite podcast service, and tune in Thursday evenings at 7 or Sunday nights at 8 for Let's Talk with Carl Lee.